Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. Today we're going to sit down and talk to Hydration, who is a pro player for the Los Angeles Gladiators. He's a well-known projectile DPS and probably one of the best Doomfists in the world at this rate. So we sit down and talk about the recent changes to Brigitte, Doomfist, and also go over exactly where Goats Comp came from, because Hydration seems to think that a lot of smaller nerfs that we've had over the past few months have effectively paved the way for this comp to be a must pick. So we're going to go over all of that and more, but first ask him about the recent changes to Roadhog, Doomfist and Brigitte to see what he thinks. You can find all of Hydration's and LA Gladiators details in the description below, but let's get started. First and foremost, what do you sort of see happening with all of these changes? Do you see any heroes coming into the meta that weren't there before? Do you see Brigitte completely dropping out? What do you expect is going to happen in like ranked or competitive when these changes go into the live servers?
Honestly, the changes are so minor to every hero that I'm pretty sure the meta is going to stay the same. In the mirror, because that's what you're going to be running, because it's even harder to counter now. The Brig is the Ryan is stronger now compared to Winston, but aside from that, it's still the same, I think.
You sort of mentioned the Reinhardt Winston stuff. Just in your own words, what is the difference? For those that don't understand why a team would run a Winston instead of a Reinhardt, can you sort of explain why that would be the case?
It's better for maps with the high grounds that actually matter, so you can actually contest the high grounds. Yeah, just maps where if the enemy has a Zen up there, and the only person that can deal with them is a D.Va, but that Zen has armor, so your D.Va can't do anything to him. Just having some extra help is very beneficial.
I remember Taimu tweeted recently talking about the sort of, it's not so much the heroes in GOATs that's a problem, it's the synergy between how the characters work. What is the biggest issue in GOATs comp that you would personally try and fix that would just be deleted Brigitte, right? Like, what kind of stuff do you feel is a bit of a problem with that comp that maybe people aren't really focusing on or don't understand why it's so strong and prevalent right now?
Just rally, I think. Yeah, just being able to have a Zen and Zarya with armor under their shields, and you can never get it out. It's just too much value.
Is it an issue, is the main issue, I suppose, with Goats Comp the fact that just nothing dies? Is that the kind of valley that is making this comp playable all of the time because it's so difficult to kill people?
Kinda. Back to the rally thing, Sombra is pretty good against Goats, but as soon as their Brig gets the first rally, you just don't do any damage. You EMP their Zen, and then you can't kill him because he has armor. So rally just makes it so certain heroes can't be played against the comp, like Tracer and Sombra.
And I guess with the armor packs too, for that instant healing, that's kind of more of the same, right?
Right. If you remember way back, Tracer used to be fairly good against tanks, especially with Pulse Bomb. Pulse Bomb got a bit nerfed, but it's still somewhat good. But you just don't do any damage outside of Pulse Bomb.
I guess this goes nicely onto a composition that was used quite a lot to try and counter Goats, which was Sombra Doomfist as a form of dive. Doomfist got nerfed. You are a pretty well-known Doomfist player. What did you sort of think of the state that Doomfist was in, and do you think that these changes were necessary, and are they really going to do a lot of damage to him in terms of how he plays?
He's not really dominant outside of ranked, because in ranked you don't have any communication or know how to play against heroes, so he's very strong there. But honestly, he probably didn't need the changes, but I don't think it's gonna do too much to him.
So you think he'd still be a good pick then?
Yeah, because you just have to change your playstyle a bit. You can't commit with you can't look for seismic slams to engage. You have to look for punches instead.
Whilst these changes are obviously negative, they are nerfs at the end of the day for Doomfist, right? You just feel that after a certain amount of time, good Doomfist players such as yourself and others will just find other ways to make it work, even against Goats Comp and stuff.
Right. Last year, around this time, was when Doomfist was at its worst. where all of his abilities were all buggy, and he just felt like horrible to play. And I managed to hit rank 6 on ladder, just solo queue only with Doomfist. But like over time, like the playstyle for Doomfist always changes, so you always have to like be ready to adapt.
What do you think of, like, as a player, the whole like delete break movement? Like, just sort of what's your sort of, not so much stance on the movement, but the character as a whole? I remember last year a lot of people complaining about Mercy and the state of how she was in the game. What do you think of Brigitte as a player that's no doubt maybe had to play a lot of her in like your unranked games and stuff?
She feels pretty necessary, honestly. Like, if we don't have Brig, we just have dive every game. But Brig allows Ryan Zarya to be played, which is cool, but having Ryan Zarya, D.Va, and Brig being played is not as cool.
I guess it's just more, where do you want the direction of this game personally for you to go? I mean, as a DPS player, I'm sure you'd love to play all stuff like Pharah and Doomfist all the time, but you seem like you're kind of against playing dive all of the time too, so...
I wanted to be like a healthy balance, where it's really map dependent on what heroes can be played. Like, before similar, or what I'm trying to say is like Li Jiang, on Control Center you'd have tanks being played, but on Gardens you'd have dive, and in Night Marker you could have either. Like, that's what I really think is good.
But right now it's basically just all teams running either goats or moats, as people are calling it.
Yeah, on Control Center you have Ryan Goats, and then on the other two maps you just have Winston Goats. It's just silly.
Why isn't double sniper being used to, I guess, goats, right? That double sniper can't really compete with effectively four tanks running onto a point and not being able to contest it, really.
Yeah, and the Hanzo nerfs to his Storm Mirror also hurt him pretty well, or pretty hard. The grappling hook changes on Widow, and Mercy being just gutted. That was like the main thing.
In hindsight, we now know that the sort of goats comp is a thing, and the way you just made that sound was that it was a lot of other changes and nerfs in the past that sort of enabled this to happen, right, as you just mentioned. Are there any changes that you'd go back on, that you'd kind of go, in hindsight, these Hanzo nerfs were too much, can we revert the hero back to where he was strong? Or Widow make a Widow grapple hook? Like, what would you change to make, like Doomfist 2 is another really good example of like heroes that you'd potentially revert back into their stronger phase to try and counter goats. What springs to mind that you would, now that you know that goats comp is a thing, would you, if you were Jeff Kaplan, go back and revert some changes?
If you think back to when Brig was first released, when she was like stage 3, she was at her strongest point with 150 armor rallies and a short shield bash cooldown and large shield bash hitbox, and Ghost wasn't perma picked at the time. And one of the bigger things that caused that was Junkrat, the Junkrat nerfs.
Which ones in particular? Because he's had so many over a certain period that, like, which one specifically really brought him back?
The smaller hitbox on his left click.
Yeah, there was a projectile size decrease from 0.3 to 0.2, and then Riptire's movement speed was
that's what it was.
Slightly.
Riptire. Because if you're playing Junkrat against Goats, you farm ult really fast, and then you just matrix your tire, and they can't kill it, and then you just kill their whole team with one tire. And that was like the easiest counter to Goats.
So in reality, there's only been one change to these projectile heroes. Like a good amount of them, right? Like you have Hanzo, you have Junkrat, you have Doomfist, and you have Pharah. Only one of those four was changed to be better against tank comps. Hanzo, Junkrat, and Doomfist were all nerfed against this. So, like you mentioned, Widowmaker 2, those 5 changes almost were the reason that you'd put down, at least, to why Goats comp is such a strong thing now.
Yeah. Also, Grav used to be a lot better, and they nerfed that.
That's true, yeah.
And Goats is dominant now, and it wasn't then. So like it's just like a combined amount of changes that made the comp as strong as it is.
I guess a good part of it too would be the fact that teams have been able to learn and get better at playing this comp, right? That's a good aspect of it that's certainly worth highlighting. But you genuinely feel that these nerfs basically set up Goats to become a thing almost. That this has basically been a long time coming, in your eyes at least.
Yeah, because the comp itself like has not been buffed at all, aside from like Reinhardt Shatter being fixed. It's just everything else got nerfed. So when everything is bad and this one thing is like still okay, then it just becomes the best thing.
So out of the changes that we've had, like the Doomfist one, the Hanzo damage nerf to his arrows, storm arrows, the Widowmaker grapple, are there any others that spring to mind of changes that really sort of set him up? And Junkrat, of course. Are there any other heroes that have been nerfed to enable Goats comp a little bit more?
I think it's just mainly Mercy Junkrat being changed, because Mercy was really good with Junkrat because you just damage boost him and use farms tire, but now if you play Mercy it's just like too weak for that.
Oh yeah, good point. Ashe, new hero, what do you sort of think of? And from the sounds of it, like Goats comp is obviously really prevalent and stuff with the way that it works in the highest taste at least, but do you sort of see Ashe being used in a very meta sense in the future? Say if Goats comp and tanks get nerfed, do you see Ashe coming in a big way?
I think there's a lot of potential in Ashe. Like a lot of the Hanzo Widow comps that you used to see, I think she's going to be replaced with the Widow Ashe. Just it's double sniper, but with 2 actual snipers now.
But you don't really see that coming back until some changes come into Goats comp.
I think Ashe might have the potential to be like somewhat decent against Goats. A lot of it comes down to like how you play around the enemy diva, because if she can shut you down, then you don't really do anything. But if you're able to somehow get around their diva and get like high impact dynamites and shoot their backline, I think she has potential.
I guess finally then, we're in the off season of the Overwatch League. We won't be seeing you play for a good couple of months, I don't think. So where can people get more of a fix from you playing Doomfist, or probably a lot of Goats yourself, right? Where can people find more of you on like Twitch and Twitter and stuff like that?
My Twitch is /hydration. I don't stream too often. Maybe one day I'll get back into it. But otherwise, Twitter is also just /hydration. But a lot of the times you can just go into like any Overwatch streamer and I'll probably be in their game.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, you can check out all of Hydration's stuff as well as the LA Gladiators in the description below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. We'll see you then.